Greetings and salutations, travelers of the internet. Welcome to the Lit Round Table. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Anna. We'll be your wise or not so wise mentors for today's audio adventure into all things storytelling. And today, we're talking about Edgar Allan Poe.
Ooh, because it's Spooktober.
Quoth the Raven. Yes.
Ooh.
Yes. Kind of inspired by a show that shall not yet be named, but hopefully the strikes will be over soon and we can actually talk about it. But anyway, it's kind of a hot topic right now.
So sad the strikes aren't over yet.
So sad. But before we get into that, we do have some exciting announcements to take care of. Just want to let you guys know that if you like, comment, and subscribe on whichever platform you're listening on, that does help the pod out quite a bit. So leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, comment on YouTube, what have you. That's all good stuff for us. And of course, we read everything, so we super appreciate you. And
Yes.
It's time to announce our new read-along.
Yeah. Which I should say, well, at the time that this will go out, it will have already been posted on social media.
This is true.
Because we said we would post it
Yes.
at the same time that the final episode of Magic Sleep and Poison comes out, which at the time of recording this is tomorrow, so head's up to you.
Yes.
That needs to get posted
I'm
tomorrow.
aware. But in case you're only an audio listener, because we were so ahead on our recordings with A Magic Steeped in Poison, which you guys was so good. You need to read it. But because we were ahead on those recordings, we didn't know yet how the poll was gonna pan out on our Patreon. So shout out to our Patreon as well. If you want voting rights, you should sign up.
Yes.
But
all the shameless plugs.
Yeah, we're just throwing it all at you today.
Yep.
But the people have spoken. The patrons have spoken. And now we know what the read-along is.
Okay, I thought you were going to say. You want me to say?
It was your list.
Okay, you're right. Well, before when I asked you if we know who won, I thought I heard you say, yeah, I'll say it. So I will say it.
Sorry, I teed you up.
Okay. We are on the same page now, and without further ado, get it? Because reading the same page. All right. The winner was the 5th season.
By
N.K. Jemisin.
Yes.
Who is a black female author.
Oh, I didn't know that. Awesome.
Me neither. Till I cracked it open and saw her picture on the front cover.
Nice. Nice.
Look at me
Love
being
that.
unintentionally diverse. Well, okay, that sounds like I was being intentionally not diverse, but no,
Just
anyway.
a happy accident.
Indeed. So that's exciting. It'll be an interesting experience because it also, well, I'll save it. We'll talk about it in the first episode.
Yeah. I gotta get my hands
of that
on
read
it.
along. Right.
So by the time this comes out, hopefully I will also have I absolutely will have our reading schedule posted as well. So
Nice.
be looking for that on the social media as well. And I will have it in the description what the reading assignment will be for next week. So, okay.
Nice.
Now, on to our main event. Joseph, what do you know about Edgar Allan Poe?
I know he was a moody boy with a big forehead that liked ravens.
It's true. These are true stories. What else
Every
do you
picture
know?
I've seen of him, he has had a massive forehead in all of the pictures and like artwork I've seen of him. So
Yeah. He got a big head.
That stuck.
He got a big head.
I know the one thing that he's done that has stuck with me the most is not the raven.
No.
It is not the beating heart one. It's actually
the telltale heart.
The telltale heart. It's actually the cask of Amontillado.
Okay.
Because I read that short story in high school.
Yeah.
I think.
It's very common reading curriculum.
Yeah, it was spooky.
It is
and I
spooky.
liked it.
Yes.
Yeah. It's the idea of being sealed up and bricked up in a wall. That's pretty messed up.
Agreed.
So, not to spoil that, if you haven't ever read it.
Edgar Allan Poe, he's fair use at this point. So if you're behind, sorry. But you know what? are talking about that type of literature and like revealing things about it, like the reveal is not the story. Like the way that Poe writes is so it's so, I'm trying to think of the word. It evokes a lot of emotion. It's very
it's very artistic.
Very
it's very
I keep wanting to say guttural, but that's not quite the word. But I mean, like you feel it, like in your
raw.
bones. Yeah.
It's very raw, visceral.
Visceral. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
And it really exposes a lot about human nature, and it really explores like the human psyche. And you can tell that like the author of these things was had some demons that he was struggling with, certainly. Him and Van Gogh are on like two sides of the same coin for me. Like Van Gogh is like the art Edgar Allan Poe, and just as being like a tortured soul, you know. And Poe is like the writing American version that lived hundreds of years apart. But you know what I mean.
Did they? Let's check.
Let's
check their birth dates.
I thought Poe was more
clickety clack on my keyboard.
Van Gogh. Clickety clackety.
Okay.
Because I know Edgar Allan Poe is American, right?
Yeah. Van Gogh was born 1853, March 30th, 1853.
Never mind, that might be closer than I thought.
That's what I'm saying. I'm switching to a different keyboard, but I think it's going to be just as clickety clackety. Poe is older. Poe was born...
Really? I flipped it.
Poe was born January 19th, 1809.
Oh, it wasn't hundreds. I thought that one of them was going to be like 16 and one of them 18, as far as like the years. Like the 1600s versus 1800s.
No,
but never mind.
Actually, Poe was already dead before Van Gogh was born. So, this is part of what we're going to talk about. A lot of people, but not everybody, knows that Edgar Allan Poe had a very mysterious death, and which is oddly fitting for someone who was so obsessed with death and the macabre. To have his own death be widely speculated. But yeah, he died in 1849, and Van Gogh wasn't born until 53. So.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, but.
Not me trying to go back to school to get a history major. Anyway.
You know what? This is like birth dates of authors and artists is not like common history.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
But I think of Sylvia Plath. This is funny. This is even funnier. So I think of Sylvia Plath as being in kind of like a similar vein as Edgar Allan Poe, because she also writes she's also very obsessed with death.
What things has she written?
The Bell Jar is her probably most famous. She was a poet, which Poe was too.
Okay.
But the Bell Jar is like a book that she wrote, a novel that she wrote. But she was born 1932 and died in 1963. She was only 30. But I think of Sylvia Plath and Edgar Allan Poe as like a similar like time period in my mind, but they were actually 100 years apart from each other. More than 100 years apart. So anyway.
Yes, tell us about the mysterious death.
Well, so I'm going to be heavily referencing an article from the Smithsonian that was published in 2014. It's called "The Still Mysterious Death of Edgar Allan Poe."
Okay. Link in the description, I'm assuming?
Yes, of course.
Cool.
So I just want to say, like, if you're not familiar with Poe, but you like Halloween and you like kind of like spooky, get in your head stories, Poe, you should check Poe out if you haven't already. I don't know that he's being as widely read anymore as he used to be, because you know they're changing like English standards across the board, so I don't know if he still gets included or not. But you mentioned that you're most familiar with the cask of say that word again.
I think it's Amontillado.
Thank you. I never know how to say it.
I think that's how. I know there's two L's in it, but I don't think the L's are pronounced. Like, it's not Amontillado, I don't think.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's why I try not to ever say that word, because I don't know what is not said. Anyway.
Right.
I think I'm probably most familiar with the Annabelle Lee poem.
Mm-hmm.
But, and Telltale Heart. I think I've read that multiple times, like, for class and whatnot. But, and they creep me out.
Mm-hmm.
All of them. But it's spooky season, so here we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have such a way, like his ability to, like, as a wordsmith, to craft these poems that are able to give you such a, like, a melancholic feel is pretty remarkable, I should say. Anyway, continue about his mysterious death.
No, you're good. I was just reviewing, like, the circumstances of his death, so it's really odd. It was actually this month, so he died in October.
Fitting.
Yes. Poe was found lying in the gutter, wearing, like, secondhand clothes. He was semi-conscious, couldn't move, and he was discovered by a man called Joseph W. Walker, who was arriving at a public house for Election Day. So he was found the morning of October 3rd.
Interesting.
Poe gave Walker a name that was not his own. Well, I guess, okay, it's not that he was saying that he was somebody else. He gave him the name of a magazine editor, Joseph E. Snodgrass.
Wait. Say that name again?
Joseph E. Snodgrass.
What a last name.
Right?
Snodgrass.
Yeah.
Anyway, the name sounded made up, so, well, all names are made up, but that name sounded especially made up.
Agreed. A week earlier, so on September 27th, Poe had left Richmond, Virginia, and was headed to Philadelphia. So, but he was found in Baltimore, which is neither of those places. And it was the first time, when he was found in Baltimore, that was the first time anyone had seen him since he left Richmond. So he had kind of disappeared.
This is kind of unearthing. I feel like we definitely talked about this in school, but it's just been so long.
I'm sure you talked about it in this class.
Did he have some underlying health issues?
I believe that he had tuberculosis. Or maybe it's believed that he did.
That's what I was thinking. This could be totally wrong. Was he an opium addict?
That I don't know. He might have been. Okay, so
I can look that up.
Eliza Poe was Edgar Allan Poe's wife, and she died of tuberculosis.
Oh, okay.
She was only 24. Who is David?
Interesting.
Poe's life is very traumatic in a lot of ways.
So a lot of, just with a quick Google search, the jury's still out on whether he was dependent on opium. Some people insist that he had a opium dependency. Others say it's not so certain. There was definitely a history of alcohol abuse. But anyway, I was just trying to think of ways that someone ends up delirious in a gutter.
Yeah.
Giving an incorrect name.
And I apologize. I said Eliza was Poe's wife. It was not. It was his mother. So his mother died at the age of 24 of tuberculosis, and then his father died of the same disease within a few days.
Okay.
So both of his parents died of tuberculosis. So in the 4 days between Walker finding Poe and his death, he never regained enough consciousness to explain what had happened. But he did keep saying over and over again the name Reynolds, who is still a mystery. We don't know who that is. Reynolds. All of that to say,
fascinating. People
are still baffled by what happened and have suspicions on what was the cause of death. I will say that the death certificate listed the cause of death as phrenitis, which is a swelling of the brain.
I mean, I was going to make another joke about how big his head looks, but...
That's rude.
I know. That's why I stopped myself. So he's found in a gutter. Mm-hmm. He says the name Snodgrass, who's an editor. He never comes back to like full consciousness. He's still in a delirious state, and he keeps saying the name Reynolds. Mm-hmm. And then he passes away shortly after. Mm-hmm. Like in a bed, just.
Mm-hmm. He dies on October 7th.
Huh. I mean, I gotta assume there was some kind of illness there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess I can see why that would certainly be up in the air, especially given what medical technology was back then. Properly diagnosing a cause of death was probably a little more tricky.
Yeah. I also want to point out that he's considered the father of, like, the detective story. So it's kind of his.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you like detective stories. And then I thought, I kind of assumed that was Arthur Conan Doyle. And then I looked him up, and he wasn't born until 1959. So another one who was born after Poe was gone already. So, anyway.
And that's Sherlock, right? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yep. So.
I certainly would not have credited that to Poe.
So
that's cool.
I should have already known that, but clearly I did not.
I forgive you.
Thank you. Okay, so the theories.
Okay, yes, hit me with the theories. I want all the conspiracies.
The first
aliens.
Yes, that's the last one. No, the first theory is beating, that he had been beaten to death, which could account for the brain swelling if he'd sustained traumatic injuries.
Presumably by a man named Reynolds.
Who knows? The assumption with that one is that he had gotten drunk and then had been beaten to death. Well, not to death, and eventually to death. I don't know. How do you say that? Beaten and robbed.
Beaten into a delirious state.
Yeah. The other the other theory is called cooping, which, according to this article, is a method of voter fraud practiced by gangs in the 19th century where an unsuspecting victim would be kidnapped, disguised, and forced to vote for a specific candidate multiple times under multiple disguised identities. Which I think the only reason that this is a theory is because it was found on voting on election day.
In someone else's clothes.
Yeah, in mysterious clothes. It's probably, according to this, it's one of the more widely accepted explanations of what happened to him.
That is wild.
That is wild.
Like
I've never heard
some cartoon level.
Yeah, I think it's funny that it's one of the most. I think beating is like the number one suspected, but you know what? It could be that there's a combination of these things. It could be that he was a victim of cooping, and then because it was a common practice to reward those individuals with booze, and so he's hijacked for cooping, gets drunk, and then gets beaten to death and robbed. Seems very unlucky for a famous author. Another prevailing thought is alcohol, and that can explain the whole leaving, not showing up where he was supposed to,
being in someone else's clothes, like he might have stolen the clothes,
drinking himself to death,
stolen the clothes from somebody, and not
Yep. This is interesting, though. It looks like before his death, Poe became a member of the temperance movement, which was a movement against alcohol. Because he'd struggled with it his whole life. So, did he cut alcohol off cold turkey and then have a relapse and lose it? I don't know.
Go on a binge and do some crazy stuff. Maybe
Are we going to try and combine all of these theories into one massive ball, like a rubber band ball of theories?
we're gonna big brain this.
Okay.
So here's what happened.
We're gonna solve this
right?
mystery today.
Yeah, you heard it here first. This is
on the lit round table.
The definitive truth of what happened to Edgar Allan Poe.
Please read sarcasm.
You can quote me on this. It is the official view.
Coming from the man
of the
who
Civ nerds.
Didn't really remember what had happened to Poe at all until 26 minutes ago.
There's nothing on this conversation. So, so he joins the temperance movement. He swears off alcohol for a time and tries to quit cold turkey. He goes traveling, which, when you're traveling and you're away from your normal circle, maybe there's more temptations on the road.
Mm-hmm.
You're away from everyone. Someone, you pass by a pub and you're like, no one will know. Maybe he decides to venture into said pub where he encounters some people who are looking for coopers. That's what
a cooping victim.
That's what it was called.
Mm-hmm.
He gets picked up by these coopers, the cooping people, the cooping kidnappers, the Sly Coopers.
It all comes back to Sly Cooper. Everything.
Oh, what a great video game series. That's a deep cut if you're not familiar with the Sly Cooper games. Wow. So he gets kidnapped by these Coopers, the Sly Coopers, and he gets told, like, hey, man, we'll give you alcohol if you go to these voting booths and vote for these people in all these different disguises and help us commit voter fraud. And he's like, yeah, I got nothing better to do. And then he does it.
For the record, I don't think the people that are victims of cooping are willing participants. I think that they're forced to do it and then rewarded with alcohol, but forced to do it. I think. I suppose maybe not.
All right. We're thinking on our feet. We're revising as we go.
Okay.
Here we go.
Well, there's more theories, so you're going to have to just keep revising this.
Oh, well, why didn't you tell me? Okay.
Because this is amusing. Keep going.
So, now I'm going to have to guess what the other theories are.
Ooh.
So, he gets kidnapped by the Coopers.
Mm-hmm.
He gets beat up a little bit. They rough him up a little bit. Say it's only going to get worse unless you do this. Mm-hmm. They give him some outfits, tell him, go vote for these people at these voting booths at these times. Mm-hmm. Do it, and then we'll give you some alcohol. And he's like, oh, you know what? That sounds kind of good. I wanted to drink anyway. I'm not going to fight them on this as much. So he goes out and he puts the outfit on. He goes out and does it. And then he reports back to the Coopers. Well, they just give him a bunch of alcohol. He gets super, super drunk. And just to ensure that he forgets, I feel like they were going for blackout, because they want him to forget that he ever saw them and to forget their names, even though one of their names is Reynolds.
Oh. Uh-huh.
Reynolds is the ringleader.
Uh-huh.
Him and his father, the editor guy,
Snodgrass.
with the made-up name, I forget.
Snodgrass.
Anyway, Snodgrass. So he gets beat up, and he is super drunk, and they throw him in a ditch, and the heavy drinking also exacerbates the tuberculosis which he maybe had, and this leads to his eventual death.
He was beat to death and robbed.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the Coopers did.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
They basically gave him alcohol poisoning, which exacerbated the tuberculosis, and they beat him half to death, thinking that they might not have expected him to die, but they were hoping he would just forget about all the things that happened, and then they left him in the ditch.
Okay.
And that is when the aliens come into play.
No.
Okay, what are the other theories? I thought that was it.
I think that was great. I think that was great. I told you it's going to be like a rubber band ball. You have to just keep adding layers. Carbon monoxide poisoning.
Explain.
So, for a while there was a theory that because of what was used to produce indoor lighting, mainly coal, that there was carbon monoxide poisoning from coal gas.
Oh.
This health researcher tested clippings of Poe's hair for heavy metals, but it was inconclusive. So largely discredited.
I was gonna say that one seems like a bit of a stretch. Although maybe the coal furnace in the Cooper's hideout wasn't exactly the code.
Maybe.
All right, so easily incorporated.
Yeah.
Into the rubber band theory.
Sure.
Continue.
This ties right into the next theory, which was heavy metal poisoning.
Okay.
So the tests that Albert Donné ran were inconclusive for the carbon monoxide poisoning, but they did reveal elevated levels of mercury in Poe's system.
Mm-hmm. Mercury.
But it looks like that was likely due to the cholera epidemic that he had been exposed to. Because doctors would prescribe calomel or mercury chloride, which would explain some of Poe's hallucinations and delirium before he died. So.
Yeah.
But still, like, according to this, like, the levels that were found are still pretty low, considering, like, compared to what's normally considered mercury poisoning. But I feel like you can't, like, totally rule. It could still have been a factor, right? So if he was delirious and having hallucinations, which we know he was, that could have tied into the whole, like, running away.
Yeah.
Getting drunk, like that could factor into so many things. So I feel like that could just be an underlying current.
The mercury, the alcohol abuse, and the potential opium abuse. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He's got a lot of things going against him here.
Mm-hmm. The next theory is rabies.
Whoa, okay, tell me more. Rabies is disturbing. Rabies is actually terrifying.
Agreed. I feel like rabies would be more obvious if that was the case.
Yeah. I mean, that's also pretty easily tested. Well, I mean, I guess if you're not thinking to test for it, but
I mean, now I don't know how easy it was to test for then.
Yeah, they might not have known as much as we know about it now. But all I know is that once you start exhibiting symptoms, it's too late. You're a goner, and that is scary.
Yeah. So this is largely due to a clinical study that was being done where doctors were presented a list of symptoms and had to determine what the diagnosis would be. And one of these anonymous patients was EP, a writer from Richmond, who had succumbed to rabies, obviously so. The physician, J.J. Morin, had admitted EP to the hospital for lethargy and confusion. And shortly after, the patient was exhibiting delirium, visual hallucinations, and wide variations in pulse rate and rapid shallow breathing. Within 4 days, the median length of survival after the onset of serious rabies symptoms, EP was dead. And then it came to find out that EP was Poe.
So you're telling me this man was drunk, hallucinating from mercury, had carbon monoxide poisoning,
but had been bitten by a bat in the midst of all of that.
Are you serious?
No, I'm adding to your...
Oh, with the rabies. Okay.
I'm adding to your rubber band ball of theories. All of this had happened to him, and in the midst of him being cooped, a bat got him, and he died of rabies 4 days later.
Well, rabies takes a while longer than that. He would have gotten bit by a bat several days earlier. But I failed to account for your trying to explain how he got the rabies.
Yes.
I thought you were trying to make some kind of like vampire reference, like.
Well, okay, but so I was gonna say the irony of Edgar Allan Poe being bitten by a bat and dying of rabies.
Yeah, that's pretty spectacular, isn't it?
Yeah. Except awful.
It would have been even more ironic if he got attacked by a raven and got bird flu or something.
Okay, so there are a few kinks in this theory. Apparently, a major symptom of rabies is hydrophobia, which I didn't know.
Right. It is,
and he was reported to be drinking water in the hospital. So, until he died.
Yeah.
So unlikely. No evidence of an animal bite, although I've heard that some bats can bite you and you can't tell because their fangs are so itty bitty.
Small, yeah. But no, I've seen some videos of people that have rabies and like the hydrophobia, and like they can't hold a glass of water without shaking. Like they physically can't bring it to their lips. So I feel like that's probably pretty debunked if he was drinking water in the hospital.
Right. The one thing that keeps this theory pretty solid is the fact that the doctor that was looking at this case, centuries later, like 100 years later plus, didn't know it was Edgar Allan Poe. And so he didn't come into looking at the medical records with any preconceived notions about drugs or alcohol abuse. And so he was looking at the symptoms just for what they were, without the extra context, which is funny because normally you think that having the extra context is helpful. But I think when you have someone who's notorious for drug and alcohol abuse, it probably isn't
People
helpful.
Are quick to pin the blame.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of the more recent theories is that he had a brain tumor.
Could explain the hallucinations as well.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, the way he was buried originally was in an unmarked grave.
Oh.
But
disrespecting my boy here.
Yeah. But 26 years later, they did erect a statue of Poe near the graveyard's entrance, and then eventually his coffin was dug up so that he could be exhumed in order to be moved to a different place, a place of honor. But 2 decades of it had only been 2 decades. It had only been 27 years, but it the coffin disintegrated as they were trying to move it, and there wasn't much left.
Yeah, he was worm food for 27 years. I just gotta say too, the Edgar Allan Poe having his grave exhumed.
Yeah. Come
on, that's
it's wild, right? This poor guy.
So on the nose.
This poor guy. So this, I will quote this. It says, "Little remained of Poe's body, but one worker did remark on a strange feature of Poe's skull, a mass rolling around inside. It could have been his brain, because those shrink over time."
Did this man pick up Poe's skull and shake it like a maraca?
No. When they were lifting the coffin out, it disintegrated and the remains fell.
So someone had to pick up Edgar Allan Poe's skull.
Yes.
What are the
However,
odds, dude?
We know now with today's science and medicine that is not possible, because one of the first places the body rots is the brain. But it's interesting nonetheless.
Man.
Well, I guess this says that it couldn't have been the brain, but it could have been a tumor, which can calcify after death. So maybe it was. Hard to know.
Okay.
Hard to know now. The next theory is the flu.
Okay.
Way more basic. Probably a fairly likely cause of death to get the flu and collapse and...
Yeah.
Could have turned into pneumonia, which can cause hallucinations. Mm-hmm. It's also cold and rainy.
Pneumonia can cause hallucinations.
If you have a fever high enough.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And then, as we do, the last theory in this list is...
Aliens?
Murder.
Oh. By aliens?
I suppose. No aliens supposed for Mr. Poe, but murder.
Murder by one named Reynolds.
No, this article has no suggestions for who Reynolds might have been. But I suspected that the brothers of his wealthy fiancée murdered him. So
he never got married, but he was engaged.
I think that he... Let me look. He had...
Or maybe he had a wife before, like he was...
Yes.
A divorcee or a widower or something.
Okay, I may have been getting all kinds of confused. Okay, so his mom and his dad died of tuberculosis. Right. Virginia Eliza Clem Poe was a cousin of Edgar Allan Poe and his wife. This is... Okay.
Oh.
Poe was problematic. We need to put a blanket statement here. Virginia Clem was 13 when she married Poe, who was 27.
Okay, then, Mr. Poe. I'm going to call the Popo on Mr. Poe.
Though their marriage was loving, this is from Wikipedia, some biographers suggest they viewed one another more like a brother and sister. And then, so they got married when she was 13. And then when she was 24, she died of tuberculosis.
My guy.
Yeah. This is not funny.
My guy.
It's just, can you see why the man was obsessed with death?
It follows him like a plague.
It does. Yes.
Wow.
And
that is so sad.
Her disease and death did have a dramatic effect on his alcoholism in a very negative way.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and her death is believed to have been a huge influence on Annabelle Lee, the Raven, and Ligeia. So, anyway, yeah, the dude had a lot of sad stuff happening in his life, and so the fact that he died in a very mysterious way and we don't really know what happened is bizarre.
He was 26 and she was 13.
She was 27. He was 27 and she was 13.
He was 27
when they got married.
And then she died when she was 24.
Yes.
So that's 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
So he was 38 when she died.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine getting married when you're 13
No.
and then catching tuberculosis and dying in your mid-20s?
I cannot.
That's so sad. That is so sad.
Completely agree. Okay.
Ugh.
So my critiques of some of these theories. The biggest one that stands out to me. You mentioned at the top of this podcast that the man had a big forehead, easily identifiable features.
Yes.
So, if he was the victim of Cooping, I don't believe you could put that man in a different outfit and march him into the same building and be like, he's going to vote again. Somebody else. And have them not be like, you're a rabbit with a whisker. Or with a mustache.
Could they not send him to multiple different voting locations?
I guess I don't know. I assumed it was dress him up, send him into the same one over and over again. Let me look here at the details of Cooping.
I guess I think that's a possibility if they sent him to more than one voting location. Or someone's really good with a disguise kit.
Okay, but the polling site where Walker found the disheveled Poe was a known place that Coopers brought their victims. So that tells me that they would take someone to the same place and just have them go in over and over again. I could be wrong.
It also tells me though that voter fraud was just rampant.
Well, no, absolutely.
And that they weren't doing that much to stop it.
That's true.
If it was a known place.
But I feel like if you put Edgar Allan Poe in a different coat, he's still going to look like Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, that's just my brother, Johnny. Don't mind him. Yes, he came by and voted 10 minutes ago.
He's slightly less drunk than me. Don't mind my next brother, who will be slightly more drunk than me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a glass of water? Ah! Rabies joke there.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I've also heard theories that he stepped outside, it was raining, he slipped and he hit his head, and then he wasn't found, and I feel like that's also a plausible explanation of what happened. But
if it was raining out, that also makes me think it wasn't rabies, because he wouldn't want to go out in the rain because of the water.
Right.
Anyway.
Right. Yeah, the hydrophobia, or lack thereof, is the biggest deterrent from the rabies theory.
Yeah.
But it's one of those unsolved mysteries.
It certainly is. Well, until today, because we solved it.
Right. And the Smithsonian article that we heavily referenced a lot.
Yeah, they don't know what they're talking about at the Smithsonian. You kidding me? We're a bunch of hacks.
Yeah.
Anyway, what a legendary figure in American literature.
Yes.
And what a legendary death And
fascinating, right?
So way to keep all aspects of your life and death so on brand for you.
Exactly.
Like, bravo.
I feel like after the fourth, I feel like this is going to sound really bizarre. I feel like after he died, he's like floating above his body. This is not at all like how I view death, for the record.
Right.
I'm just like,
right.
for the sake of storytelling, if this were a movie, if this were a book I wrote, Edgar Allan Poe dies, he leaves his body, he looks down and he goes, "Ah, yes. I left them wanting more." Floats away.
Oh, look at that 5 head.
Yeah.
I didn't know my head was that big. And then
That's so weird.
Anyway, yeah, that's wow, man.
So Edgar Allan Poe.
What a man.
What a man. What
a way to go.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, I've always thought that his death was fascinating and poetic in a lot of ways.
Poetic?
Well,
wow.
I meant that because he's a poet, but I guess also his name is Poe. So.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. Man, I wish we could talk about that thing that we can't talk about, but that's fine.
Nope, we sure can't.
AMPTA. AMPTP? AMPT. I did this last time.
What are you saying?
The AMPTP needs to do their job and negotiate with SAG-AFTRA to lift the strikes.
Yes. And give the actors royalties on streaming services.
Literally, they're only asking 2%.
Yeah.
Which is not a lot. So get it together, man. I want to talk about my shows with my podcast people. And also I want authors to get paid fair wages. Anyway, not authors, actors. What did I say? Whatever. You know what I meant.
You said authors, but I know what you mean. So, but that's a good segue. So, for what we can talk about, reading, writing, playing, reading, watching, playing.
Okay, Joseph, hit us with what you got. Reading, watching, playing.
Okay, so what can I actually say? For reading, I am still going through the Saga comic series.
Okay.
And I finished volume 8.
Wow, okay.
So I've got 2 more until I think I've hit the wall of where they are.
Really? There's only that many? I thought there were tons more than that.
Oh, there's 10 volumes. And then that is like, I think that's supposed to be the halfway mark for the series. They took a little bit of a break, but I think it's about to start up again.
Okay.
So, yeah. That's been really, really good. Also, reading, well, we finished Magic, Sleep, and Poison, and now we're going to be reading the 5th season. So I'm excited to start that. Yeah, I don't think there's any manga or anything that I've read that I would talk about. Reading has been light. I've been watching a lot of stuff. It's just a matter of what I can say. We've been watching Tokyo Ghoul, which has been good. We've been watching I've been watching Critical Role, Campaign 3. Let's see. I started watching, I don't know if I mentioned this on the pod before. I should have if I didn't, but like I remember talking to you about it. I don't know if it was on the podcast though. That Zom 100 show it's the anime about the guy who works a terrible office job.
Yeah.
And then the zombie apocalypse happens and it's like the best thing that's ever happened to him because he doesn't have to go back to his terrible job.
Yeah.
That show's really, really, really good.
Okay.
So watching that. There was also, nope, can't talk about that one. So I'm pretty much just limited to anime right now for what I can talk about watching wise. So for playing, been playing Baldur's Gate 3 and I am in Act 3. It's going great. It's a very, very good game and I'm very happy with it.
Good.
And I'm excited to play it again as
Nice.
like a different, because it's kind of like a choose your own adventure situation,
Sure.
And there's a lot of replayability because you kind of get FOMO with the other classes and you want to like replay the game as every different class. But it's very fun.
Nice.
So Yeah, and we're still playing good old classic 5th edition D&D. We just played that last night, and that's been going well. All of us are still alive, miraculously. Kind of surprised our DM with an impromptu shopping-heavy session since we were finally back in civilization and we had a lot of money to burn. So that was fun.
Nice.
Sorry, Sarah. So, yeah, it's been good.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That everything?
So how about you?
Well, for my reading, I also finished The Magic Steep in Poison. And I will also be starting the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. I am also reading Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I am reading the 2nd volume of the Leia of Alderaan manga, which I'm almost done with. I think I just have 1 chapter left.
I forgot about that.
It's good. She ends up on Naboo, and she ends up in Padme's celebration dress. Bonkers. It makes sense. It's a little forced.
What's the time?
But
what's the time frame?
It is the Rebel Alliance.
Is it after Return of the Jedi?
No.
Oh, okay.
She's still Princess of Alderaan, so she's like on diplomatic missions.
Okay.
Bale and her mom are still alive, and
okay, I see.
Yeah, so it's before the Rebel. It's before the Death Star.
Okay.
And then Blake and I started reading our new read-along book, which I'm going to read the title because I'm going to get it wrong, because I always get it wrong. Reading An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green.
Oh, okay.
Dude, it is so good. I am blown away.
See, I've never read a Hank Green book, but everyone always raves about them.
Okay. Hank Green is not the same as John Green.
So this is the same author as...
No.
Okay. So
the Vlog brothers.
This is not A Fault in Our Stars.
Correct.
This is...
his brother.
This is... Okay.
This is the science one.
Okay, in that case, I did not know that he also wrote books.
Yes, he's written 2 books now. And this is like a sci-fi heavy inspired... I'm going to say new adult because I don't want to say it's YA because the characters are too old to be technically classified as YA because they're post-college grads. Okay. But they are still young people. So it kind of reads like a YA, but I suppose it's probably just adult fiction. But yeah, there's mysterious statues that show up and the chaos that ensues. It's fascinating. It's very well done. So, that's been really fun.
Nice.
And it's making my commute...
Is that a book that neither one of you have read before?
Correct. Yeah, so originally, the first book we read together was one that he had read, and then we read The Hobbit together, and then we decided we wanted to pick one that both of us were unfamiliar with. So, this is our choice.
Nice.
It's very good. Very, very good. And then for watching, I am also watching Tokyo Ghoul. There was a new episode of Spy Family that came out that was very cute.
Oh, I forgot. Yes, I did watch that too.
Yes, very good, very good. And then I'm also watching Critical Role. I am behind, but I am getting caught up. And then a ton of stuff like you that I can't talk about. Yeah. I can't talk about this, though. Blake and I are going to go see the Eras concert movie.
Nice.
Which I'm very excited about. And I can talk about that because Taylor Swift worked directly with AMC to coordinate that and totally bypass the AMPTP. So
nice.
Kudos to her for doing that.
Yep. The amount of sway that woman has.
Dude. It's wild.
The power she wields.
Love to see it. And then for playing, I haven't played anything. I'm going to be real honest. I have not
that's okay.
even thought about picking it. I did. Okay, that's not true. I thought about picking it up yesterday, and then I was like, no, you have a lot of homework, so you're going to do your homework.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all I got. That's all she wrote.
Nice. Well, Edgar Allan Poe.
Edgar Allan Poe.
What a tragic figure.
Mm-hmm.
I so desperately want to talk about what I want to talk about.
I know.
But we'll wait.
I know.
Anyway.
I know. There's so many things.
I would just say, without mentioning what the show is, there's just so that you're not confused. If you don't know, like if you're confused with what we're talking about, there's a show that we can't talk about that recently came out. That's a spooky show that draws a lot of inspiration from Edgar Allan Poe. So that's what we're talking about, which we'll have to unpack that once we can.
Yes.
As well as like 3 other shows. So anyway,
yeah.
Once again, the read-along is going to be starting shortly for the next book, the 5th season.
Yeah.
Go check that out by N.K. Jemisin. Go check that out. So I guess until next time, go read an Edgar Allan Poe poem.
And happy Halloween!
Happy Spooktober.
We'll talk at you next time.
Later. Ooh.
Bye.